Thank you guys for coming out today. So, I'm an 8th generation ballad singer from Madison County. On my mom's side, I'm 8th generation. On my dad's side, I'm 5th. So, on my mom's side, my grandfather's name was Byard Ray. He was a really well-known fiddler around the mountains, but I feel like around the world, or around at least the United States. My mom, Lena Jean Ray, was a wonderful ballad singer. She went to college in New York City during the folk music revival of the 60s, and so her singing style is a little bit different than the usual style that you hear over home. On my dad's side, I'm a 5th generation, and so my grandfather on that side's name was Madison Norton. He played the tune bow. Do you guys know what that is? What a tune bow is? A tune bow looks like a bow and arrow. It's a really long piece of wood, and it has a banjo string on it, and you pluck it. And so some people might call it a mouth harp. But he has a tune bow in the Smithsonian Institute up in Washington. And he also played the paper bag and the spoons, and he was a wonderful ballad singer and a dancer as well. And then it's all these people in my family. It's just been coming at me from both sides. So it was, kind of in the cards, I guess you'd say, for me to do this. And so you see this banjo here on the ground, and I don't know if I'm comfortable enough to play that in front of everybody today, but I'm going to try. So my cousin is Sheila Kay Adams. Does anybody know that name? Yeah, oh good. She's a really wonderful ballad singer, banjo player. She's a great storyteller. She's a National Endowment for the Arts Heritage Award winner. And so she, myself, and my friend Leila Weinstein received the North Carolina in These Mountains apprenticeship grant from the North Carolina Arts Council, so that's really exciting. And so one of the things Sheila's doing is teaching us some new songs and teaching us how to play banjo. So I'll try to do that later, not right now. So back in 1916, an English folklorist named Cecil Sharp came through the Appalachian Mountains, and that year he happened to come through Madison County, which is where I'm from. And so the community that I come from in Madison County is called Sodom. And so there's a few different stories as to why Sodom got its name, and our favorite is that there was a Baptist preacher that came through the area during one of the wars, and when he came out, he looked all worn out and, just, whew. And they were like, "What's wrong with you, preacher?" And he said, "Well, I'm glad to be out of that place. There was more sinning going on over there than in Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. There's people playing the devil's music and a dancing and all kinds of stuff over there." So that's how Sodom got its name. Well, Cecil Sharp came through Sodom back in 1916 and collected, I think it was 26 ballads from my great-great-aunt, Mary Sands. I discovered Cecil Sharp's book in high school, which my mom, of course my whole family already knew about this book, but I discovered it in high school when I was a student at Asheville High, and so my love affair with ballads sort of began at that time in my life. And I think I'll hush a-talking, as my mama would say, hush a-talking. And I'll sing you guys a song. This song's called Young Hunting. And there's a line in this song, and it's actually the title of my newest album, which I'm completely sold out of at the moment, but it's called Forevermore I'll Sing. And but this is Young Hunting, and I learned it from my cousin Sheila Kay Adams. Come in, my old true love, and spend this night with me, for I have a bed, it's a very fine bed, I'll give it up for thee, I'll give it up for thee. It's I can't come in, no I ain't coming in, to spend this night with thee, for I have a wife in the old Scotland, this night she awaits for me, this night she awaits for me. She pulled out her little penknife, it had been both keen and sharp, she stepped it up to her own true love and stabbed him in his heart, she stabbed him in his heart. Woe be, Lady Margaret, he cried, woe be to thee, for there weren't no wife wife in the old country, that I loved any better than thee, thee that I loved any better than thee. Lie there, my own true love, for an hour or 2 or 3, and I will send for a doctor near to save the life of thee, to save the life of thee. It's I can't live, no I ain't gonna live, from this wound you've given me. No doctor's hand, only God's own hand can save my life for me. Can save my life for me. It's she called out to a servant girl, this thing I'll promise thee, if you'll help me on this dark night, my gown I'll give to thee, my gown I'll give to thee. It's she gathered up his long yeller hair, and the other picked up his feet. They threw him in the old dry well, which was so cold and deep, which was so cold and deep. Lie there, my own false love, till the flesh rots off in your frame, and your little old wife in the old country can mourn for your return. She can mourn for your return. Up spoke a pretty little bird from within the willow tree. Well, there weren't no wife in the old country that he loved any better than thee, that he loved any better than thee. Fly down, my pretty little bird, and perch upon my knee. I'll build for you a gilded cage, sure beats that willow tree, sure beats that willow tree. It's I can't fly down, no I ain't flying down, to perch upon thy knee, for you just murdered your own true love, the same you'd serve to me, the same you'd serve to me. It's I'll go and get my arrow and my bow, my arrow and my string. I'll shoot you through your tender little heart, you never more shall sing, you never more shall sing. While you go and get your arrow and your bow, your arrow and your string, I'll fly away on my 2 little wings, and forevermore I'll sing, yes, forevermore I'll sing. Young Hunting. Is that too loud? Do I need to put, okay. I was kind of trying to hold it back because I didn't want to blow y'all out of the... My Aunt Evelyn used to say, "Briar, you head back and sing, gal." And my nanny called it, she'd say, "Well, I don't know why you want to go do that old hollering, no way." Because there's a difference in ballads and church songs. And in Sodom, we call the ballads love songs. Even though they're murder ballads to most people, in Sodom we call them love songs. And in the church, it's gospel or the church songs, we called meeting house songs. And so there's a big difference, and there's a line. And my nanny was on the meeting house side of the line, and her sister, my Aunt Evelyn, was on the ballad side of the line. So I always thought it was funny to hear them arguing about which songs whoever was going to sing and that sort of thing. So traditional ballads are sung a cappella. They are not sung with musical accompaniment. And that's how they've been passed down in my family for 9 generations now. So what my family does is one of the oldest unbroken oral traditions in the United States, other than the indigenous traditions. So it's an oral tradition, and so the way that we teach a ballad to someone in our family or someone who wants to learn is what you call knee to knee, or we call it knee to knee over home. And so you would have a master ballad singer and an apprentice, let's say, and so they're sitting, knee to knee. And so I would sing you the first verse of the song, and then you would sing that verse back to me. And then I'd sing the second verse of that same song, and you would sing the first verse and the second verse. And then I'd sing the third, you'd sing first, second, and third until we got all the way through the song. And it might take us 4 days to get through some of these because there's like 70-something verses. But like really no sleeping or anything, like a whole 4 days. I'm just kidding. But so traditional ballads are sung unaccompanied. And now you may hear some of the songs that I sing today and think, wait, that sounds really familiar because maybe you heard it in a bluegrass song. And usually a lot of bluegrass songs that are older are ballads that they just cut several verses out of and then put music behind it. But I've tried to kind of stick to the tradition because ballad singing was sort of a dying art form when I started doing this, and I was the youngest ballad singer that there was, like, in our community. And I remember when I started singing, there were sometimes only 2 or 3 ballad singers on stage. But that COVID, I think, sort of changed things for us ballad singers a little bit because during COVID, what happened? Everybody wanted to be home and they wanted to get back to their roots and they wanted to start growing their own food and learning how to do all these things from scratch and so like what's the root of this music, like of old time and bluegrass? It's ballads, right? So people started really kind of getting interested in that sort of thing and wanting to learn more about it. And my cousin Melanie and I did this thing called Quarantine Happy Hour, and we were singing on Facebook for like people over in Australia and like they're just all over the place that had never heard ballads before. And so we're on this kind of a wave right now of like a ballad resurgence. And so there are all these new ballad singers, and I actually, with my cousin Sheila, started hosting a monthly ballad swap that happens the second Wednesday of every month in Madison County at the Old Marshall Jail Hotel. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. and the jail's amazing. There's a restaurant there. We do the ballad swap on the patio right on the banks of the French Broad River. And it's $5 burger night, and it's really cool. And a ballad swap is where there are several ballad singers who will sit on stage together and take turns singing ballads. And so at the swap at the jail, my cousin Melanie and I have sort of made it our mission to make it as informal as possible because, we do lots of concerts and shows and things like that, but we wanted people to feel like they were sort of having that front porch experience like how we did it over home. I remember being in Sodom and we'd be working in the fields, getting beans and taters and backer or whatever we were working in that day. And we could just go to anybody's house and there was music and people were eating supper and that sort of thing. And so we wanted it to kind of be that same way. And so it's super informal and we have a great time. But that's what a ballad swap is. It's where people share songs and stories and that sort of thing. It's a lot of fun. But the other thing about ballads is that a ballad is a story told in song. And so you might see that I have my eyes closed when I'm singing my songs. It's because I picture that story happening in my mind when I'm singing it, and it kind of helps me remember the words. And it also may be helpful for you to do the same thing while I'm singing, to kind of just picture that story in your mind. Because, if I had my eyes open and I was looking around and somebody was yawning or picking their nose or something, it might totally make me forget the words. And I don't have a band behind me to keep picking until I remember what I was doing, And and another thing is we don't do harmony singing, it's just always one person. But now we'll sing together, and it may or may not sound good, but we will do some songs together. And I'll let you guys help me with some today, if you want. And I would love it if you guys have questions or anything while I'm up here. Feel free to raise your hand and let's talk. So I'm going to sing you a song that it's also on my newest album, but it's one of my favorites. Actually, I'm going to save that one for later because I'm going to sing one where the girl dies because that's usually what happens in a ballad. And I just sang one where the girl didn't die. So let's see. I'm going to do a song called Knoxville Girl. And It is a murder ballad, and bless this woman's heart in this song. And y'all have to excuse my voice because I've been singing literally, this is the 4th day in a row by myself. All right, so Knoxville Girl, which was originally called the Oxford Girl, and this is a song that my daddy used to sing. I met a little girl in Knoxville, a town we all know well, and every Sunday evening down in her home I dwell. We went to take an evening walk about a mile from town. I picked a stick up off the ground and knocked that fair girl down. She fell down on her bended knees, for mercy she did cry. Oh, Willie dear, don't leave me here, I'm unprepared to die. She never spoke another word, I only beat her more, until the ground around me within her blood did flow. I took her by her golden curls and drug her round and round. I threw her in the river that flows through Knoxville town. Go down, you Knoxville girl with the dark and roving eyes. Go down, you Knoxville girl, you can never be my bride. I started back to Knoxville, I got there about midnight. My mother, she was worried and woke up in a fright, saying, dear son, what have you done to bloody your clothes so? I told my anxious mother that I was bleeding from my nose. I called for me a handkerchief to bind my aching head. I called for me a candle to light my way to bed. I tossed and tumbled the whole night through, as troubles was for me. Like flames of hell around my bed, and in my eyes did see. They carried me down to Knoxville and threw me in a cell. My friends all tried to get me out, but none could go my bail. I'm here to waste my life away down in this dirty old jail, because I murdered that Knoxville girl, that girl I loved so well. Knoxville Girl. Now that one may be one of those ones that sounds familiar to you because you've probably heard the Louvin brothers sing it before or something. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I missed it, but why did he kill her initially?
Well,
I mean,
that's part of the mystery, right?
Doesn't.
So generally, back in the olden days, the reason that the man killed the woman is because she became pregnant Or, he was supposed to be marrying someone else, and she became pregnant. So what do? You got to get rid of your problem, right? So you just kill him, throw him in the river. But that's usually what would happen in a murder ballad, typically. So, yes.
How much do you think the stories are, how do I say this? The ballad stories that were sung were based on true situations, or a kind of an inner resentment that occurs with all couples, I'm sure. Sort of a psychological wailing of that kind of emotion of the conflict in relationship. Do you have any ideas?
So, well, my thoughts are, okay, so I think a lot of the ballads were meant to be warnings for women, right? So whether they were from men or other women, like the men were saying, oh, you shouldn't do this or that because you're gonna die. Or, like you're going to get pregnant and then nobody's going to want you. You'll be ruined, burnt, as we say over home. You'll be burnt forever. And burnt's a whole lot worse than ruined. But also, I like to believe, I really feel like a lot of these songs were stories that probably happened in villages or towns, because my family brought these ballads over here with them from the British Isles. And I feel like these were probably stories that happened in different places. And what's the easiest way to remember a story is to make it rhyme, right? Or put it in a song. And so you just put that melody with it and you can easily remember it. And so back, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they didn't have newspapers and televisions and radios and that sort of thing. And so how did people get news from other towns, right? Somebody came, there was a message carrier, maybe a bard would carry that story over to them, right, via song. And I think that's in my mind that's what happened. And I feel like I've heard other people say that as well. But Little Matthew Groves is one of the ballads that we sing, and it's from the 1500s. And I'll sing it for you guys later because I just sang you one of them long-winded ballads, as my nanny would say, one of them long-winded ballads. So I'm going to lighten it up a little, and I'm going to sing you guys a funny song, and it's actually the title of my very first album. It's called Single Girl. But it's also sort of a warning to women from probably another woman, and you'll hear the difference. I learned this song from Mary Jane Queen. She was a wonderful ballad singer from Jackson County in North Carolina. And so some ballad singers have signature songs. And this was one of Mary Jane's signature songs, and she was much older than me. And when I first started singing, I heard it, and I thought it was great, and I wanted to sing it. And I knew 2 songs, really, like 2 or 3 songs, and I was going to sing with my cousin Sheila and my cousin Melanie. We were going to Warren Wilson, and Mary Jane was going to be there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't sing Single Girl. What am I going to do? I don't have anything to sing. I was panicking because I was probably 16 years old. And Sheila was like, well, Donna Ray, honey, why don't you just ask her if you can sing it? And I was like, okay. So I asked her if I could sing it, and I'll tell y'all what she said to me after I got done. So I'll sing it, and then I'll tell you what she said. So this is Single Girl. When I was single, to marry was my crave. Now I am married, I'm troubled to my grave. I wish I was a single girl again. Lord, Lord, don't I wish I was a single girl again. And y'all can help me with that part if you'd like. I've been singing for 4 days in a row, so I'd love it if you'd help me sing. All right. When I was single, he used to come to court. He always brought me candy, and I thought he was a sport. I wish I was a single girl again. Lord, Lord, don't I wish I was a single girl again. When I was single, went dressed oh so fine. Now I am married, run ragged all the time. I wish I was a single girl again. Lord, Lord, don't I wish I was a single girl again. When I was single, I went where I pleased. Now I am married with a baby on each knee. I wish I was a single girl again. Lord, Lord, don't I wish I was a single girl again. the cows to milk and the spring to go to. A whole crowd of young'uns a-crying after you. I wish I was a single girl again. Lord, Lord, don't I wish I was a single girl again. Now I am married, I set me down to weep. My husband chews tobacco and he snores in his sleep. I wish I was a single girl again. Lord, Lord, don't I wish I was a single girl again. Now I'm married and what do you think? He bought a checkered apron and he showed me to the sink. I wish I was a single girl again. Lord, Lord, don't I wish I was a single girl again. This is my favorite verse, y'all. When I was single, ate biscuits and pie. Now I am married, it's eat cornbread or die. Wish I was a single girl again. Lord, Lord, don't I wish I was a single girl again. Warning from another woman to another woman. So I was so excited when I got done, and I was like, how'd I do, Mary Jane? How'd I do? And she looked over at me, and she nodded, and she patted me on the leg, and she said, well, you done good, honey. That was real good, but you forgot a verse. I was like, I'll take it. It's fine. So I come from a long line of characters, and they're real, but they were characters. Like my family has lots of really crazy stories that you would just not believe if you didn't see it, really, but it's true. And one of those characters happens to be my grandfather, Byard. And so Byard, I told you that he was a world-famous fiddler and all that sort of thing. Well, he was also sort of a prankster. And so we lived up in the Burton Cove in Sodom, and it's in one of the hollers down there, and it's way, way out. And Sheila's daddy actually got the very first radio down there. And it was like one of those battery-powered radios that you have to and Irvin thought that you had to save the juice in the battery, and so he'd only turn it up so loud and to where he was the only one that could hear it. But he'd make everybody else in the house hush so he could listen. So you were not allowed to talk or be loud or anything while Irvin was listening to baseball. That's what he was doing. And so he'd be sitting over there, and the radio was right beside the window in Ma and Pap's house. They lived in Ma and Pap's old house. And Bread Daddy. It was Bread Daddy too. It was actually Bread Daddy that this happened with. It was not Irvin. It was Bread Daddy. That's my fault. But Bread Daddy was my great grandfather. And so my grandfather Byard and my grandmother Nora lived in the house right above them. And so Byard and everybody would just fuss and complain about Bread Daddy making everybody hush and be quiet while And so Byard got this idea that he was going to play a prank on Bread Daddy. And so he got his fiddle and he went and hid out beside the window. And he would, at Bread Daddy, he could hear him say, hush now, everybody be quiet because I'm listening to the ball game. And so he'd get down and he'd turn it up just barely enough to where he could hear it, and he'd tune it a little bit, and you could hear about the radio, about the ball game. And then Byard would start playing the fiddle a little bit very softly outside the window. And Bread Daddy said, shh now, young'uns, I told you to hush. And he got down and he fiddled with it a little bit more. And so he'd fade in and fade out. And then Byard would fade in and fade out. And he'd fade back in and then he'd quit playing. And then he'd fade in again. And Bread Daddy was like, oh my, he said, Emily, there's somebody playing the fiddle on here now. I hear now, listen. And then my Emily was like, well, she said, Bob, I can't hear nothing. You've only got it turned up loud enough where you can hear it. And he said, all right, well, just hush now. I'm trying to listen. And so Byard was playing again, fading in, fading out. And somewhere in the middle of all this fading in and fading out that Bread Daddy was doing on the dial, he heard the word Mexico. And he turned around and he said, Emily, Lord, Sheila, run up the road and get Byard and tell him there's a fiddler on the radio from Mexico. Sounds just like him. So Byard liked to play pranks on people. That was one of his things that he did. But you know, aside from being a character, he was a wonderful singer and a really cool grandfather. He wound up being in this movie back in the 1970s called Zachariah. Have y'all ever heard of that movie? It was a psychedelic Western film. And it was like one of the only ones that was ever put out, probably for good reason. But Don Johnson was in that movie. You guys know who that is? So, and I thought that Byard and Aubrey only played music on the soundtrack, but they were actually in the film. And I saw them in it the other day, and it totally blew my mind. So during this whole time, like back then when Byard was doing all that, they invited him to come out to Hollywood. He got to go to California. Him and Aubrey went to California, to New York. They got to go to England, and Byard played for the Queen of England. He played the bagpipes on the fiddle for the Queen. So while Byard and Aubrey were in Hollywood, they had all these days that they had to be in the studio, record, doing all this stuff. And they had one day off, and Arthur Gorson, who is the director or the producer, came and said, all right, fellas, y'all have the day off, you know, why don't you just go around, explore the city, see what, you know, go see some sights and stuff, you know. And they were like, okay. Well, Arthur is still good friends with my family, but he said that he got back after being gone all day, came by to check on Byard and Aubrey just to see how these mountain men were doing over here in California, and they were in Hollywood, and he said he got back to the hotel and they were nowhere to be found. And he went up to the desk and he was like, where are those two older men that were here earlier today? And that one was like, oh, the mountain men, you know? And he was like, yeah. And she was like, oh, I think they're over next door. And well, next door there was a construction site. And so Arthur was like, okay. So Arthur goes over to the construction site and he's like, you know, have you guys seen these two older mountain men? And they're like, oh yeah, Byard and Aubrey, they hired on for the day. They've been helping us out here. And so Arthur was like, Byard, what are you doing? And he was like, well, we ain't lazy now. We from the mountains. We need to work, you know. So, but during one of those times, they were over in New York, and they actually recorded this album called White Lightning. They actually called themselves White Lightning, and so it was their old-time music, the banjo and the fiddle, but they had all this electric music with it, and so there were like horns and piano and electric guitar and like snare drums and all kinds. It was crazy, and it's really neat. You can find it on YouTube if you look it up. It's called White Lightning, and they made 2 albums. And so when Byard came home, my Aunt Sharon was a teenager. She was a teenage girl, like 16, 17 years old. And she said, oh my gosh, Daddy, you know, please tell me how was New York and how was Hollywood, and did you meet anybody? And Byard said, oh yeah, I met all sorts of folks over there. And he was naming all these random people. And he said, and I met them old Rolling Stones. And my Aunt Sharon was like, and she said, I remember at Donna Ray, we were walking to the mailbox. And he said, I met them old Rolling Stones. And I was like, oh my God, Daddy, you met the Rolling Stones? And he said, yeah, I met them old Rolling Stones. And she said, well, what happened? And he was like, they liked the way I played my fiddle. They wanted me to go on tour with them. And she was like, oh my God, Daddy, what did you say? And he said, well, I told him no. And she was like, Daddy, that is Mick Jagger. Why? And he was like, I didn't want to go on tour with them old Rolling Stones. They was lazy, just want to lay around and smoke that old pot all day. And so, but that's just the kind of character that Byard was. But he would always bring us little, like, stones. He loved to, like, dig for gemstones. I don't know what the deal was with that, but he always would bring me these little stones, and sometimes he would give me his fiddle rosin and tell me that it was a magnificent jewel that he had found in the desert. But my mama, when I recorded my newest album, wanted me to record the song In the Pines, because I had never sung it before. And so she wanted me to do that song, and she was going to teach me the Byard's version and teach me his, the tune and all that sort of thing. Well, she wound up having a heart attack and was in the hospital during the time that I was getting everything ready to go to Virginia to record with Josh Goforth. I don't know if y'all know that name. He produced my new album. And so Mom had a heart attack, and we were in the hospital, and they were taking her down for open heart surgery. And she said to me, the last thing she really said to me as coherent as my mom was, now, Donna, you get with Donovan, that's my brother, Donna, you get with Donovan, and you get him to teach you the lyrics to In the Pines, and you get him to help you with that tune. And I said, okay, Mama, I will. And as they're rolling her down the hall, I can't see her face or anything, and she sticks her hand up, and she says, "Donna?" And I said, "Yes, Mama." She said, "Don't you sing it if you can't hit that minor note." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." She wound up making it through her surgery, and she passed away months later from something completely unrelated to that. But I went to Virginia during this time with Josh and recorded my newest album, and we were recording in the Pines. And Josh, so I didn't know the tune or the versions, and so Josh and I combined his grandfather's version with my grandfather's version, and so we just meshed those two together. So my version's a little different probably than any of the other ones maybe that you've heard. So while we're in the studio, Josh is like, "Donna Ray, why don't we try something a little different?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Why don't we try to put some music with this?" And I was like, "Let's not say that we did." And he was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I was like, "I don't want to do that." And he was like, "Well, why?" And I said, "Well, firstly, this is a traditional ballad album." And he was like, "I know, but let's just, And I was like, "Josh, I don't want to." And he was like, "Are you shy right now? Like, what, are you embarrassed? What's going on here?" And I was like, "Well," he was like, "You're Donna Ray Norton. This is ridiculous." And I was like, "Well, I don't know how to sing with music." And he was like, "What?" And he was like, "Just humor me. Like, let's just try this. I'll help you." And so we recorded in the Pines with music. And so that's the first song I've ever done with musical accompaniment, and it's on my newest album, but it's also on this fine-tuned album that I have down here, the big vinyl. I was sort of the prototype for the fine-tuned project through the Blue Ridge National Heritage Area and the Blue Ridge Music Trails. So when Josh found out I didn't know how to sing with musical accompaniment, he called Brandon Johnson, who was the program manager, and was like, "Did you know that Donna Ray didn't know how to sing with music?" And Brandon was like, "What?" So this whole idea happened, and In the Pines with Music is on that album, along with some other really cool, like, different styles of music. Like, there's a Sacred Steel band from Mount Airy that's on there with Kelly Briding, who's a country western singer, Sav Sankran and Josh Jones. It was like a mentor-mentee project as well, so I'm really proud of being the prototype for that album. But my friend Ashley is here today, and she came all the way from Asheville to see me today. And In the Pines is her favorite, so I'm going to sing it for her without musical accompaniment. That's not what the banjo's for. Let's see, Ashley, this is for you. In the pines, where the sun never shines, and you shiver when the cold wind blows. I asked my captain for the time of day. He said he throwed his watch away. It's a long steel rail and a short cross tie. I'm on my way back home. In the pines, where the sun never shines, and you shiver when the cold wind blows. The longest train I ever saw went down that Georgia line. The engine passed at 6 o'clock, and the cab passed by at 9. In the pines, where the sun never shines, and you shiver when the cold wind blows. Little girl, what have I done to make you treat me so? You caused me to weep, you caused me to mourn, you caused me to leave my home. Little boy, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines, where the sun never shines, and you shiver when the cold wind blows. In the Pines. Now it feels weird for me to sing that song without without musical accompaniment. I'm going to sing you guys a new song that I learned recently. So with that grant from the North Carolina Arts Council, Sheila, Leela, and I have been meeting once a week. And I just learned this new ballad, and when I heard it, I knew that it was for me to learn. And it's a song that she learned from her mother, Nina Norton Adams, who was not a ballad singer. And so it was very interesting for me. She was my grandmother, Nora, who was married to my grandfather, Byard. She was her sister. And so it was very interesting for me to find out that Nina had taught Sheila this song. And this is Lady Isabel and the Elven Knight. There was a proper tall young man, and William was his name. He traveled o'er the northern sea for to find him a pretty fair maid, for to find him a pretty fair maid. Well, he followed her up and he followed her down, and he followed her to her room, and she had no wings for to fly away, nor tongue for to tell him nay, 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 nor tongue for to tell him nay. Go get some of your father's gold and bring your mother's fee. We'll ride till we come to the northern sea, where married we shall be, yes, married we shall be. He saddled up her fine white steed, for him the dappled gray, and they rode all through the longest day, till they came to the banks of the sea, till they came to the banks of the sea. Get down, light down, cried he, and stand here next to me, for 6 pure maids I've murdered here, and the 7th ye shall be, and the 7th ye shall be. Take off that fine silk gown and hand it o'er to me, for it's too fine and costly to rot in the saltwater sea, to rot in the saltwater sea. Pull off that linen sheets and hand it unto me, the weave's too fine and lovely to rot in the bottom of the sea, to rot in the bottom of the sea. Take off those whalebone stays and hand them o'er to me, for they're too fine and costly to roll on the bottom of the sea, to roll on the bottom of the sea. I am but a maid, cried she, you cannot ask of me. I will not shed my clothes for you, my naked body for to see, my naked body for to see. He gave to her a mocking smile and bent to her his knee. I'll turn myself all round and about and face the raging sea, and face the raging sea. He turned himself all round and about and faced the raging sea. She picked him up so manfully and oared him into the raging sea, and oared him into the sea. Oh, take me out, oh, take me out, oh, take me back, cried he. We'll ride till we get to the church, my love, where married we shall be, yes, married we shall be. Lay there, my own false love, lay there instead of me, for 6 pure maids you murdered here, but the 7th has murdered thee, but the 7th has murdered thee. She climbed upon her milk-white steed and led the dappled gray. She rode all through the longest day. That's not the right line. I almost made it all the way through it. She jumped upon the milk-white steed and led the dappled gray. She rode and she rode to her father's house in the length of a long, long day, in the length of a long, long day. Lady Isabel and the Elfman. I was like, yeah. She oared him into the sea. Yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I thought she was going to die. I was really glad that she didn't die.
See? And you know, so, right, so I was like, yes. And so in my mind, so like when Sheila was singing this song, and I know it says I'm not going to take my clothes off, but in my mind she was just naked, riding through the forest, back to her dad's house with all these horses, and she was just super bad, you know, doing this thing, and I was excited about it. So I was like, I'm learning that. So that's the first one that I learned in our new process, and I've only sang it a couple of times in public, this week actually. But I learned something about myself recently. Somebody pointed out to me, you know, you don't really sing a whole lot of the songs where the woman dies. And I was like, oh my God, I don't. You know, but my cousins, a lot of my cousins and my mom, you know, all those folks did it, but I just was like, I really don't. I sing a lot of the ones where the woman is maybe the murderer or she just lives. And they were like, why do you think that is? And I was like, I really have no idea, but maybe it's because I'm a child of the 90s and like girl power and Goodbye Earl and, you know, all that. I have no idea. But so I started trying to learn songs where the woman did die. Because, you know, that's what the people wanted. So I think I'm going to sing you guys a funny one because it seems like y'all like those. And this one I learned from Bobby McMillan, who was from Lenore. He was a wonderful ballad singer out in this neck of the woods. And he passed away in 2021, the same year, like a couple months after my mom did. So we lost two really good ballad singers that year. And Bobby was amazing. God, he was so funny, and he knew every single version of every single ballad ever and where they came from. And like, you know, you'd start singing and say, oh, this was so-and-so's version from over in, you know, Mitchell County or whatever. And he'd be like, no. Now that was Mama Phillips' version, and it was from, you know, or whatever. Or that was from over in Cott County, Tennessee. So it was really kind of amazing to get to listen to Bobby talk about all this stuff. But when I was a little girl, my mom and Sheila and Bobby and Marilyn McCready would get together, and we would go to each other's houses or whatever. And so I have two cousins that are my age, and so I would always be playing with them, and the grown-ups would be singing and talking and cutting up in the kitchen and doing all their stuff and things. And I was always the one who would like steal away by the door to listen to the dirty songs or the ones that had bad words in them, you know, or that listen to them telling adult jokes or things like that, you know, just because I thought it was funny, and sometimes I get caught and sometimes I didn't. But Bobby was really hilarious, and this was one of the songs that he sang, and it's called The Farmer's Cursed Wife. So this song reminds me of my grandmother Nora, who was Bard's wife, and I'll tell you why when I'm singing the song. But you can help me with this one, and I really want you to help me this time because y'all didn't help me last time. So this one's a little easier maybe, and the guys won't mind singing it either because it's not about, you know, single girl or whatever. So this is The Farmer's Cursed Wife. There was an old farmer lived over the hill, and if he ain't dead, he's a-living there still a-singing fi, fi, diddle-lie, fi, diddle-lie, diddle all day. Now that'll be your part. Do you think you can handle that? Okay. Oh, come on. You got it. I'm going to sing it 1,000 times, so you'll remember it by the end of this song. All right. Well, the devil stepped up to the man at plow, said, one of your family I'm a-taking right now, singing fi, fi, diddle-lie, fi, diddle-lie, diddle all day. Well, the farmer said, I've come undone, you've come to get my only son, a-singing fi, fi, diddle-lie, fi, diddle-lie, diddle all day. Well, it ain't your son or your gal I crave, but your old scolding wife, and her I'll take a-singing fi, fi, diddle-lie, fi, diddle-lie, Well, welcome, sweet Satan, from the bottom of my heart. I hope you and her never more shall part, singing fi, fi, diddle, I, fi, diddle all day. You're doing good. You don't have to do better than that. Well, he stuffed her down in an old tote sack, and he looked like a camel with a hump on his back, singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Then he carried her down to the forks of the road, said, "Get down, woman, you're a hell of a load," singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Then he carried her down to the gates of hell, said, "Poke up the fire, boys, we'll roast her well," singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Along come a little demon, a dragging its chain. She grabbed it up and she smattered out his brains, singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Now there's 6 little devils sitting on the wall. She picked up a poker and she thrashed them all, singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. I can't hear you. And this is the verse that reminds me of my grandma, y'all. And she grabbed old Satan by the hair of the head, said, "I'd have done killed you if you weren't done dead," singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Well, the littlest devil stepped up and said, "You better take her back, Daddy, or we'll all be dead," singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Well, the farmer saw him coming and he bit his tongue and he broke for the woods in a flat-out run, singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. And his herd to say as he run o'er the hill, "If the devil won't have her, I'll be damned if I will," singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. And the children said, "We sure is cursed, for she's been to hell and she's come back worse," singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Well, I've been the devil for all of my life, but I've never been to hell till I met your wife, singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Well, here's your ma'am, and she sure is well, but I tell you what, she's tore up hell, singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. Now this just goes to show that women are better than the men, for we can go to hell and come back again, singing fi, fi, diddle, I, diddle all day. So you can see why, as a second grader, I really wanted to learn that song. I think. Well, we've been an hour almost. So do you guys want me to keep going, or you feel like anybody have any questions or anything? No. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You see, I see what you did there.
That's what I was going to ask.
Oh, is it?
No. The heritage, is it Irish? Is it Scotch? What is that?
Scotch Irish, I would say. A lot of my family came from Scotland, Ireland, the British Isles. That's what we always say, the British Isles, because I think my cousin Janet did her ancestry DNA thing, and it was a lot of Scottish, because we have a lot of redheads in our family. We do have some Cherokee in our family as well, but mostly Scotland, Ireland.
The Ord is what got me. I was like, that's Irish, isn't it?
Ord, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that one's so cool because, like, you know, the name of the song is Lady Isabel and the Elf Knight, or the Elven Knight. So he's an elf in that song. And I'm like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. And so something interesting that I really enjoy that has happened to me recently is that, well, I'll tell you this first. So Cecil Sharp, when he came through the Appalachian Mountains back in 1916, when he stopped in Madison County, and he wrote this in his book, he said that Madison County was like a nest of singing birds, and that all the songs that he collected in Madison County were more untouched and pure, and they sounded more like the old ballads than even some of the ones that he was hearing back home. So I was up in Virginia at the Carter Family Fold a few months ago doing a show at the Blue Ridge Opry, which was kind of like this new, I don't know if y'all ever heard of the Blue Ridge Opry show. That's Kelly Briding does that whole country western thing, and it's, you know, just bluegrass and old time and that sort of thing. And so she was like, why don't we try why don't you come sing some ballads, since, you know, this is where it's all kind of started. It'd be neat to have you on our show. And I was like, okay. And so I did one with them, and it went over really well. And so they invited me back to the Carter Family Fold, which was so cool to sing there. So cool. I just have to say that. But after I got done singing, after the show was over, this man comes up to me, and he was a British gentleman, and he had an accent, I could tell. And he was like, you just sang 3 child ballads, didn't you? And I was like, I did. How about that? You know, and he was like, that was amazing. He said, I planned my whole journey over here to the States, across Appalachia, based on Cecil Sharp's journey through Appalachia, collecting these old ballads. And I was like, what? Like, that just blew my mind, you know. And I was like, did you know that I was going to be here tonight? And he was like, I had no idea. I just came because I like string band music. And I was like, what? That's so crazy. That was just wild to me. And he said, I'm in search of these old songs, because he said, even over home, and even the ones that I found on my journey down here, he said, they're all changing. They don't sound the same anymore, but you just sang them just like they are supposed to be sung, like they were sung a long time ago. That was exactly the same way. And he said, everything's evolving. I'm trying to find out if anybody's still doing it the original way. And I said, have you been to Madison County yet? And he said, no, I haven't. He said, I'm going there next weekend. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we can, meet up while you're over there or whatever, and we can talk. I can introduce you to some people or whatever. He said he would love that or whatnot. And I told him that Mary Sands was my great-great aunt, and it was like he just wanted to reach out and touch me. He was like, oh my God, Mary Sands is your aunt, and I was like, yeah. And so he was so, just totally touched by all that. And, I exchanged my contact information with him, and I was doing a show for the Blue Ridge Music Trails, because I'm the coordinator for the Blue Ridge Music Trails now. And I was tabling at the show that we were doing. And I looked over, and y'all, I kid you not, that man was walking in. And I was like, what? And he had no idea that I worked for the music trails. He didn't know any of that stuff. And so we were like, oh my God, this is we have to meet and talk and all this stuff. And so when he came into Madison County, I took him on a tour of Sodom. And I showed him where Alan's stand was at, which is where Mary Sands sang for Cecil Sharp. And he was just so thankful. And he sent me this huge email when he got back to England. And it was a really amazing experience. But just to have him say that I sang those songs the same way, but that things are evolving, and that is what's happening. And so my family and I are just trying to figure out a way to keep this tradition alive and going as purely as we can, while also trying to help it move forward into the future. How do we do that? So that's something that we're working on, and that's why we're really proud of the ballad swap at the jail. It's at the Old Marshall Jail Hotel, which is actually a hotel and a restaurant. I know I already said that, but it was the oldest operational jail in North Carolina. It just closed in 2012. And our current sheriff in Madison County's name is still on the door there. But it's a really cool place. It's sort of like a museum, and there's all these different artifacts and just all this stuff. And the day I went in and I met Josh, he's the owner, I could see what was, I could see he was very much, that he cared so much about our community and our heritage and the history and all that sort of thing. And we were looking for a place to do a ballad swap, and I was like, so, about this, how about we do a ballad swap here once a month, and he was like, bring it on. And so he's been really supportive and welcoming, and so it's a really cool thing, and you guys should try to get out there at some point. The rooms in the hotel are very affordable and things as well. So anyway, but it was just kind of neat for me to have that man say that to me. I felt very excited about that. So that was a really cool thing for me. I guess you want me to play my banjo, don't you? Oof. I'll try, okay? And maybe I have one more song in me after that. Ugh. So this sounds very plunky to me. I'll try, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm so sorry. and I don't even know if I can really sing with it, but I'll try. But maybe you guys could help me with that too. So I'll try to play Fly Around. Y'all know that song? So Fly Around, the chorus goes, fly around my pretty little miss, fly around my daisy, fly around my pretty little miss. You almost drive me crazy. Think you can handle that? Okay. Oof, I'm so sorry in advance. I'm gonna have to play around for a second, okay? This is his fault. Y'all blame him, okay? No. Ugh. Oh my God. Messed up. In public by myself, and I'm all red and embarrassed right now. That was for you, and you need to buy all my albums. So you need to buy. Okay, so now let's see. I want to redeem myself, and I'll sing y'all 2 more songs. So I'm going to sing you guys a song that Kaz Wallen from over home used to sing, and it's called Fine Sally. The woman dies in it, but I love it, and I think you're going to like it too. All right. Madison County, did somebody say where's Madison County? Who said that? Madison County is I'd say about 2 hours away from here. Maybe less, maybe like an hour and 30 minutes away from here. Actually, an hour and 30, maybe 2 hours. But it's right along the Tennessee line there. So there's Mars Hill, Marshall, Laurel, Hot Springs, Walnut. It's a pretty big county. Spring Creek, I always forget about them, but don't tell them I said that. My face is still red, y'all. Okay, so this is Fine Sally, and this is Kaz Wallen's version of this song. There was a rich lady from London she came. Fine Sally, Fine Sally, Fine Sally was her name. And she had more money than a king could possess. Her neatness and her beauty was worth all the rest. There was a young doctor who lived nearby, and it was on this fair maid that he casted his eye. Controlled by her beauty, he held her most dear. He courted her truly 1 day plus 1 year. One night as they pleasured, he fell to his knees, crying, Sally, oh Sally, won't you marry me? She said, I don't hate you, Willie, no, there's no other man, but to say that I love one is more than I can. He clumb on his horse and away he did speed, crying, Sally, oh Sally, you'll pay for this deed. I'll curse you, Sally, all the rest of my days, and I'll never forgive you for your lying ways. Fine Sally took sick and she knowed not why. Her chambers all thought that she surely would die. They called for the doctor for the want of a cure, for her pain and her misery could not be endured. Up rode the young doctor, to her bed he drew nigh. Her chambers all parted and moved to the side. Is that you, Willie? Oh, my sight it grows dim. I fear for my present and my future seems grim. Said, yes, I am the doctor, can cure or can kill, but to say I forgive you is more than I will. Then damn your soul, Willie, you can be on your way, for to beg you for mercy is not in my sway. From off in her fingers pulled diamond rings 3, says, here is your token to remember poor me. And as you dance on my grave, sir, shed not no tears for me. Just remember you're a-dancing on Sally, your queen. Fine Sally. She's like, I'd rather die than to tell you I'm sorry. I ain't doing it. I think that one's pretty good. I like that one a lot. Y'all have any questions or anything? So there's one song that we do sing together to close out shows usually, and it kind of pokes fun at all religions. Y'all okay with that? Yeah, pokes fun at all the religions. And y'all can help me with this one again. So the chorus goes, don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Y'all think you can handle that? Come on now. I want to hear a yes, Donna Ray. Yes, Donna Ray. Okay. All right. So, and I'm going to try to remember the words for all this. And is it Methodist priest? Yes, that's what it is. Is a Methodist priest? Does a Methodist, is it a or is a preacher? Okay, great. Thank you. I can't remember. All right. Let's see. There's a Baptist preacher, you can tell him by his coat. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? He's got a bottle in his pocket that he can't hardly tote. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, them Presbyterians now, they're so proud. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, their necks so stiff that they can't hardly bow. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, that Methodist preacher, don't you know, don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? They'll never let a rooster get big enough to crow. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, that Catholic priest, he'll jingle his bell. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? You can pay him $10 and he'll pray you out of purgatory. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, them TV evangelists, now what can I say? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, they're raking in the money and are rolling in the hay. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, them holy rollers, they're all right. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, they'll roll, they'll tumble while kick out the lights. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Now, the Episcopalians have 2 verses, and I'll tell you why at the end of the song. Well, them Episcopalians, now what can I say? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, come to think about it, they just ain't really nothing funny about Episcopalians. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, them Episcopalians now, they come equipped. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Where 2 or 3 are gathered, there's bound to be a 5th. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, them Free Will Baptists, I like to have forgot. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Well, they have to get saved every other day. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? There's a Southern Baptist mama settin' in the pew. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? The Lord ain't judging her, but she's a-judging you. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank God there's a song that's a-singing in my soul, and my soul sought free. Don't you hear Jerusalem mourn? Thank you. So I'll tell you this last thing about the Episcopalians verses is that so I worked at this place, and I worked with this man, and I sang Jerusalem Mourn, and it's one of our baby ballads. It's only 100 or so years old. And so we add verses as, time goes by. And so he comes up to me, and he's like, Donna Ray. And people are offended that their religions are not in this song, which I think is great. But he's like, Donna, there are not any verses in that song about Episcopalians. And he's a deacon at the Episcopalian church. And I was like, well, Ray, if you want to help me think of something funny about Episcopalians, I'd be more than happy to sing it. And so about a week went by, and I stopped past him again in the hallway. And I was like, hey, Ray, did you ever think of anything for me to sing about Episcopalians? And he's like, I've been thinking, and I just can't think of anything. I was like, that's my verse. There ain't nothing funny about Episcopalians, apparently. And then Sheila learned where, they come equipped. 2 or 3 are gathered, there's bound to be a 5th. But I love the Southern Baptist man because, Lord, I have some of them in my family, y'all. And the Free Will Baptist, too. But I was Catholic on my mom's side, so, I'm all over the place. I'm so glad you guys are here today. Thank you for coming out and suffering through my banjo playing. Thank you.